Welcome everyone to the channel. My name is Jake and I am so glad that you've been able to join me. Now today we're going to be talking about something that affects a lot of us. It affected me for a long time, but I know it affects many of you as well. And few people talk about it as openly as I want to talk about it today. And it's that moment or that unsettling feeling in your life, usually around midlife, when everything looks fine, right? On the outside, like your career, your family, routines, like everything feels fine. But deep down, like something feels off to you. Like you've been checking the boxes, you've been showing up, doing all the things, but inside quietly, maybe you've been asking yourself things like, is this really all there is to life? Or, gosh, I checked those boxes I was supposed to, so why do I feel this way? Why do I feel like I need to be doing more or feel empty? I used to know exactly what excited me. When did I lose all that? Or I know I'm successful on paper by most measures, but I don't feel successful in the ways that actually matter to me, or that I don't feel the way that I thought success would feel. Now, if any of those connect with you, sound familiar, then you're experiencing this idea of your midlife questioning phase. And here's exactly what most people don't realize when they start to hit this moment. It isn't a crisis. It's not a midlife crisis in any way. It's not a failure. And of course, you're not alone. Studies show that 82% of adults who are between, say, 40 and 55 experience some sort of significant period of some sort of a reassessment of their values and purpose, regardless of what their external success was. So if you're anywhere near that, either approaching that age or you've gone through that, you may be experiencing that. Or if you've never addressed this and you've gone beyond that point, maybe you need to go back and do that. This isn't a random breakdown. It's actually natural development stage that signals that you're ready to do something deeper than what you're doing right now. So if you find yourself zoning out during a meeting thinking, man, this used to matter more to me, or sitting in the car before you walk into your house wondering, why does it feel so heavy? Once again, you're not broken. You're not alone. It's definitely not too late. This isn't any sort of a crisis or meltdown. It's just that wake-up call. And I know that feeling really, really well. Years ago, I had my own moment of just, staring out over that whole sea of cubicles within a corporate environment, that hum in the air of the fluorescent lights, and realizing I'd built a version of success that looked good on paper, but it didn't feel like it had any purpose to me. It wasn't creating value for me inside. That day changed everything for me. Now, my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder. I'm the author of this book. It's called GIVER Method. It's an Amazon bestseller. It came out in November. Since coming out, it has tons of 5-star reviews. Thousands of people have purchased it, and it is making drastic impacts in their life. I highly recommend you go get yourself a copy. I'll put a link in the description where you can go get it. It's the best, $9-10 that you can invest in yourself. Now, at the same time, you may be like, yeah, I get it. I understand everything you're talking about. I try to preach this to my people as well. Well, if you've got an audience, a podcast, a stage, a community, a tribe, whatever, that you feel this message would resonate with and really make an impact on, then I'd love to chat with you so we could talk about how I could bring this message to you. Because for me, you buy the book, it doesn't get me anything. I don't make money on books. And having a conversation and speaking to your audience, I don't take anything from that. What I love about it is that it gives me a chance to empower all these other people to start making the change in their lives and discover their gifts and superpowers and find more ways to create influence and value and better relationships and live a more fulfilled life. So if you have an audience, podcast, stage, whatever, and you'd love to chat more about what we could do, let's get on a call. I'll put a link down in the description for that as well. Everyone else, grab yourself a copy of the book, or maybe grab it for someone else who may need it. Now today, I want to walk through this idea of it's that midlife reset, and it's a roadmap I want to take you through. Now, that you don't have to be in that age bucket for this to make sense to you. You could be 28 and it be as applicable to you in the stage of life where you are. And this isn't about blowing up your life in any way. It's about bringing the real you back into it. So this roadmap is, for parents who are wondering who they'll be when their kids, don't need them 24/7 anymore, or the entrepreneur stuck in their business that they feel no longer reflects their passion, and for the employees who can't shake that feeling they've climbed up maybe the wrong ladder. We're going to talk about the real tools, grounded, shifts that you can do and simple ways to reconnect with your gifts that you've been carrying all along, even if you've forgotten that they're there, or how to use them. Now, before we dive in, if you find this valuable, once again, if you're new to the channel, if you haven't seen these before, please hit subscribe, ring that bell for notifications, like the video, leave your comments along the way. I love to make sure that I show up in front of you as much as I can because I drop videos all week long, multiple times a week, and I want to make sure that you are able to see the one that's going to help you to discover your gifts and superpowers and make the impact that only you can make. So let's dive in. I want to explore these 5 principles, steps, strategies for that midlife reset. Give you that roadmap that will actually help transform your life from maybe questioning into a midlife purpose that catapults you on to the next step, next stage of life. So the first one I want to talk about is, I call it the honest inventory, which really is the what's actually going on check-in that you need to do. So I want to start with something really simple, and it can be really game-changing for you. Taking a brutally honest and totally judgment-free look at what's going on in your life right now. Not where you hoped that you would be, but not where you thought you maybe should be. Just like, where are you right now? Because here's the truth: most people I talk to who are around this season of life, they've done a lot, right? Like, just because where they are, like, you've worked hard, you've shown up, you've built something that really works on paper, the business, a career, a family. But at some point you start feeling like you've climbed the ladder without ever asking if it was against the right wall that you were climbing, right? And now you're wondering, is this it? This isn't about beating yourself up in any way. It's about just noticing where maybe you're out of sync, where you're going through the motions, where your shoulds have taken you, have taken over what your actual wants are. And research really backs that up. 70% of midlife professionals say they feel disconnected from what used to matter. And so you're not alone in this. You just need to wake up. Like, you kind of are coming to terms and starting to wake up from where you've been, and now it's time to move forward. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to grab a piece of paper, or open a notes app on your phone, and I want you to draw, simply the idea is we're trying to draw a circle and divide it into 8 slices, and so these 8 slices are going to be work, family, health, creativity, learning, contribution, spirituality, and joy. Now, this is your life alignment wheel, and I have 2 questions that you want you to go through with each slice that it is. So once again, work, family, health, creativity, learning, contribution, spirituality, and joy. The 2 questions are, how is this important to me? And how fulfilled do I feel in this area right now? And rate each one on a scale of 1 to 10. Don't overthink it. It's just a gut check, and there is no wrong answer. When you're done, step back and look at it. You're not looking for perfection anyway. You're just looking for maybe the disconnects. Low scores are just data. They're not evidence you failed. They're just clues pointing you to what's quietly been slipping out of alignment for maybe a period of time. Now, here's one more tool. You run yourself an energy audit. So throughout the week, jot down what fills you up and what drains you. Not just work or family. Be as specific as possible. Was there a meeting with a client or something that sparked something for you, or did you feel like you were just slugging along? Did you walk with your kids and it felt fun, or did it feel forced? Look for the patterns. These patterns, they're gold. Now, the key is this isn't a performance review in any way. Like I said, it's being brutally honest, but non-judgmental. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not trying to fix anything right now. You're just listing, let me listen to what's happening in my life and get honest about what's really working and what's wearing you out, what feels off. And it matters because you can't change what you won't name. Most people never stop long enough to ask these sort of questions. They're just going to keep pushing through, whatever their to-do list is, and hope that, that funk goes away. But the moment, where you actually get this awareness, that's the first step to reset. And from here, everything else starts to shift. So once again, just think about those areas within your life that, we talked about: work, family, health, creativity, learning, contribution, spirituality, and joy. That's going to be the way to start this whole thing. And getting that clear picture helps us move on to these other 4 principles. So the next one, principle number 2, is it's you have to do some digging of forgotten dreams. Dig up what you didn't mean to bury over time. Because let's be real, somewhere between parenting and emails and school pickups, tax season, and being everybody else's rock, a lot of things that you used to love probably got quietly buried. And have been hiding. And so this is about digging those up and bringing them back to life. You're not trying to relive the past, but remember who you were before all of the noise started. So this is when I called it, okay, but let's dig up what we didn't mean to bury. What's that forgotten dreams that are there? But most of us didn't abandon these dreams on purpose. Life just got busy. You had to make responsible choices. You're forced to, to do what had to get done, right? And in this process, you shelved the parts of yourself that actually, were giving you life and fuel and energy. And so here's the really weird part. Those parts of you, they're still in there. They don't disappear from you. in any sort of way. They're wired into who you are. The research backs it. Adults who revisit these abandoned areas, these abandoned dreams or passions in midlife report higher satisfaction. And why? Because those passions are usually connected to some sort of a core gift or superpower. So this is the stuff that makes you you and helps you to show up more authentically. So here's what you want to do. We want to start digging into this. So once again, open up that app, that notes app, grab a piece of paper, whatever it is. And I want you to we're thinking about this as like a timeline. So if you need to have a piece of paper, draw the line from about age 15 till now. And in that timeline, I want you to think, so you can title it like timeline of aliveness, and mark the moments where you felt the most lit up, like the most engaged, the most yourself. Like, what were you doing? Were you teaching? Were you traveling? Were you creating, coaching, building, solving? Pay attention to whatever it was. Look for the patterns. There's a lot of magic in there. And then you try this, write a letter from your younger self to your current self. Some people did that back in the day, and they pull it out. They're like, oh my gosh, it's awakening for them. But write it as if you were your younger self, your 15-year-old self, or teenager, let's say 20-something version, and ask hey, what happened to our plan to blank? And it's not to put you into any sort of a guilt trip or anything like that. You're writing to remember what mattered before that survival mode kicked in. And the other thing is you can scan your life for passion patterns. Are you always that one that's stepping up to coach people, to teach even when that's not your role? Or do you lose track of time when you start organizing or brainstorming, or if you're creating? Those moments aren't random. That's your gifts. They're right there trying to sneak back into your life. Now the important part is schedule a dream date with yourself, and seriously, just carve out 20 to 30 minutes to take yourself somewhere that feels good. The coffee shop, the park bench, a parked car for listening to your favorite playlist, whatever it may be. And then write down this question, what did I love before life got really loud? And don't filter and don't judge, just write. You're not making a 5-year plan. You're just trying to remember the parts of you that you didn't mean to lose, because these forgotten ideas and dreams and passions, they aren't silly or selfish. They're just early indications of what's in your wiring and your coding. It's your gifts waiting there. And we're going to talk about that in the next principle a lot. Before, the world told you to be more practical, and you had to be the parent, the entrepreneur, the business leader, whatever. When you reconnect with them, you often unlock a kind of energy and clarity that can change the entire second half of your life. You're not trying to go backward. You're just reconnecting with the parts of you that have been waiting patiently to get back online. Now, that leads us third way principle, about midway through. And it's that, so we talk about gift revival and how we create those to be superpowers. How do I bring these things back to life and develop them? Something that you might have forgotten some of you forget how good you actually are at certain things. And so this step is bring back to life, bring your gifts, and superpowers back to life, because you're not starting from zero. You've got these talents, these instincts, these skills that used to be second nature to you, but they've been sitting in the background while you handled everything else in life. And different research out there says that most people in midlife, they have about 7 natural abilities that are either dormant or totally underused. 7, that's different ways that you're probably gifted in such that haven't had much airtime lately. Now, as I talk about things within the GIVER method, this is the whole idea. The G in GIVER, it's an acronym, is for gifts and superpowers. And I'm there's plenty of them in you. And at any point, you should really know off the top of your head, what are your 3 to 5? What are the things that that's what you're good at? And people come to you and such. And so we're going to talk about some of the ways you can do that, but also that's one of the big concepts at the beginning of the book. These are just natural things that are part of you. The wild thing is we probably don't even see them, because some of our biggest gifts usually just come so naturally to us that we forget that they're special in any sort of a way. It's just how we do things. And that's why your best friend, your coworker, can name strengths for you in seconds, and you're going to sit there trying to figure it out, what sets you apart for, many minutes, hours, or whatever, how long it takes you. That's the sneaky thing about our gifts. They hide in plain sight, but when you are using them again, something starts to shift. The studies show that people who revive them, some sort of a dormant talent or gift in midlife, get a huge burst in purpose and meaning and creativity, and it really starts to push them along. So they're waiting to be discovered, and then once you rediscover them, developing them out more. Now, let's revive these gifts. Let's start to find them. Then here's how. So start by something that's called that, think of yourself like an archaeologist. What's my talent archaeology? I'm not looking for dinosaur bones. I'm looking for my talents. And ask yourself, like, what do I do easily that other people struggle with? Are you the go-to to make complicated stuff really sound simple? Do people come to you when they need, calm in a crisis? Do you naturally create order where there's chaos? It could be all sorts of things. Come up with whatever yours are. And then try, think of also the complement connection where, you text a few friends, family members, coworkers, siblings, and ask hey, what do you see as something that I'm really good at? If someone came to you and they had a problem and you're like, oh my gosh, you need to talk to Jake. What would that thing be that you'd be why would you be referring them to me? You're going to be surprised at what comes back. Often they're going to name a gift that you've been overlooking for years. And then take those strengths, take those things and run them through some sort of a translation, system or map, and ask yourself, where else could I use these? If you're naturally, if you're natural at encouraging people, maybe you could mentor someone. If you're simplifying systems is what you're good at, then, maybe work with some sort of organization that has a messy process. If you've got killer eye for detail, maybe start some sort of simple project that tells you where you're telling yourself to use it more intentionally. You don't need to, this isn't about a big career change or massive reinvention in any way. Just find one new place where you can express these gifts and developing them out to be superpowers and try it. A consideration, there's a side project or a small leadership opportunity, a volunteer role. Look for these areas where you can do these gift experiments, that help you to reconnect without needing to, upend your life, as a part of it. Why does this matter? Each of these, I like to ground them in why they matter so much. This one, because using your gifts is one of the fastest ways to feel alive again. You're not not burnt out in any way, alive, purpose-filled alive. And when you're doing something that's aligned with how you're naturally wired, you start feeling that flow again. You stop feeling the grind and you start feeling like you're gliding through everything. So no, you're not starting over in any way. You're bringing forward the parts of you that were always here. You're reclaiming what you got buried underneath that busyness of life. And when you pair that with, when you pair that, those things together, everything, that you've learned in life and all these experiences, that's where real magic is going to start to happen. Now, we're a little bit beyond halfway. We got 2 more principles and then kind of the wrap up. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Has there been anything that you've taken away? So once again, please comment. Let me know where you're at, what you're thinking along the way. So the fourth principle, the fourth thing is this vision redesign. So resetting your vision for what's next. So if you've done this reflecting, you've started reconnecting with old dreams and waking up some of those gifts, that have been gathering dust for a period of time. But now comes the big question, what do you actually want your next chapter to look like? What's the next step all about? And so I call this resetting your vision for what's next. This is where things start to feel exciting again, because no, you're not starting from scratch in any way, like we talked about. You're starting from wisdom, from lived experience, and from real earned perspective that, your 15-year-old or 20-year-old or maybe even 25-year-old self didn't have. But here's where most people get stuck. They then, they're trying to recapture the ambition and vision they had in their younger years. And honestly, this is you're trying to run old software on a new computer. It just doesn't fit anymore. You've grown, and what used to light you up might not be what, you're here to build now. So let's build this vision that fits where you are today. So start with this, look for a reverse visualization. Close your eyes and picture yourself 20 years from now looking back on where you're at this season of life. What are you proud of? What did you create? Who did you have the most impact on? And what do you have the courage to what did you have the courage to try, to build, to change, or that you said yes to? And let this version of yourself whisper some wisdom to your present self. You're not dreaming here. You're remembering what mattered before you got buried in survival mode, and then map it out. So create your purpose portfolio. What are 3 places you feel pulled to contribute? Maybe it's your family, maybe it's mentorship, creating, giving back, leading, healing, teaching, whatever. Ask yourself, where do I feel the most energy, and who am I here to serve? Now, this gives your vision some structure, because when things start to get busy, and of course we all know that they will, your parents and entrepreneurs or employees grinding away, then it will get busy. And so you need these ways to realign and create these alignment anchors, which are just going to be simple reminders or rituals that pull you back to what matters most. It could be a note on the mirror. It could be a monthly check-in with someone who knows where you're at in your heart, a quick journaling habit, asking yourself, am I still building what matters to me and what I want? If you're an entrepreneur, this might be shifting your business model to reflect like deeper values that you may have. If you're an employee, it might be redesigning your role so it draws on your true strengths. If you're a parent, it might be crafting family rhythms that reflect the values you actually want to pass down, not just surviving the schedules and the routines that we fall into. Now, the daily move, like, if you look for a purpose pause, where every morning you ask yourself, like, what's one thing I can do today that aligns with where I'm trying to go, who I am trying to be, who I'm trying to evolve into. It doesn't have to be this big leap. Maybe it's a meaningful conversation, or maybe it's working on something that stretches you a little bit. Maybe it's making space to rest, because that's, what gets you back in touch with who you are. It matters because, like, without a clear picture of what's next, most people default to like what feels familiar, even if it no longer fits them. But when you're clear about where you're heading, something shifts. Decisions, like, they become easier, confidence gets louder, and you start living with purpose instead of on autopilot. Second half of life doesn't have to feel like a slow fade, or that you're in a repeat of Act 1. It can be part of like where your story gets so much better, because you know exactly what you're here to build and the impact you're trying to make. And that leads us to the fifth and final principle, which is like, there's purposeful experiments that you want to do, like how you test out these things, like especially the vision, without blowing everything up. The next step, like, it's a big one, because it's not because it's requires any sort of a leap, but because it finally moves you from thinking about changing to actually trying it. So test out without blowing everything up, because, like, let's be real, most of us get stuck thinking like the only way for our lives to be changed or realigned in that sort of way is to have some sort of massive change. The new job, new city, new identity. That stuff can be exciting, but it can also be paralyzing, especially like if when you've got, I don't know, a mortgage and kids, employees, calendar that's already full, email inbox that's full. Like, the shift, like, there's a shift that happens there that's real and meaningful reinvention that you can do. It doesn't come from burning everything down. It comes from testing, trying, tinkering, and running these purposeful experiments. So what you do is, you can start by, grabbing one, looking at one small piece of what that second half vision was. Just one. Grab a piece of it, something you're curious about, something that lights you up even a little bit. And then you look for that. What's the low risk launch that you can do? You might love mentoring, but you don't need to quit your job to become a full-time coach. Like, just start, maybe grabbing coffee with someone who's a step behind you in your field or in life. Hop on Facebook group and answer a few questions. Teach a concept for 5 minutes, in a voice memo. Like, there's no pressure, there's no big stakes. It's just some movement. And then set up some light boundaries around it. Like, what's the time commitment you're putting towards this? What support would make this easier? How will you know, like, it works? This sort of a boundary blueprint, it's going to keep you from going too hard too fast, and it also protects your current responsibilities while you explore these new areas. After you run these experiments, don't just move on. Like, sit with it, like, breathe with it, and then use like some sort of a reflection loop, where you look at, okay, well, what did I feel like? What made me feel energized? What drained me? Like, what surprised me about trying these things out? What would I tweak the next time? Like, these sort of insights, they're going to be gold for you. They're going to help you to narrow in the kind of contribution that fits you, not like maybe the old role or how you've been showing up previously. And so it might look different depending on what season of life. If you're a parent, maybe you've got 30 minutes while kids are taking a nap. Like, use that time to pick up maybe an old creative hobby, or to share an idea with something you've been holding on to. If you're an entrepreneur, maybe that's testing a new offer, or quietly, before you pivot your entire brand towards it. Like, there's no announcement, there's no pressure, there's no launch. Like, it's like, I'm just gonna test this thing. If you're in a job and you're starting to feel like it doesn't fit, like, offer to join cross-functional projects, that stretch you into new skills. You don't need permission to try something new, just curiosity and a little bit of calendar space to do that. Which brings me to one of my favorite tools, which is like an actual experiment calendar, where you pick one thing you're trying to do and you schedule it, because when something's on your calendar, you are 3 times more likely to actually do it. If you're waiting to find the time, you probably won't ever find it, but you can make time for things that matter. And this is like that's why this matters. Like, so this experiment stuff, like, it's going to have such an impact. It's so huge and important, because the gap between that clarity and confidence is action. You don't have to figure out the next season by thinking harder. You figure it out by moving, by testing, exploring, and adjusting. Like, you collect the evidence that says, yes, I've got something powerful to offer and I'm on the right path. Everyone, like, every small purposeful move chips away at the fear that's holding you back. It's helping you start realize that you don't need to blow up your life and redesign it. You can build the next version of yourself, right where you are, bit by bit, one experiment at a time. This isn't the end. It's a re-beginning for yourself. If you're feeling off, if you've questioned everything, that you've worked so hard to build, wondering if this is it, then once again, I'm telling you with clarity that tug that you're feeling is not a failure. It's not a midlife meltdown. It is just life nudging you to wake up a little bit and re-engage with and remember what matters to you and bring your whole self authentically to the table. We've walked through these 5 real principles, things that you could do. None of them are theory. None of them are fluff. They're grounded human steps in reclaiming your energy, your gifts, your superpowers, and your direction. Getting honest with yourself, in your calendar, and revisiting your dreams, pulling, some of those gifts back to life, reimagining that vision of life, and then exploring where you're at. This isn't you're not flipping the table over. It's just about shifting the weight to what really matters. And I get it. This process can feel weird or even vulnerable. You might start strong and then question yourself, and that's totally normal. That means that you're doing the work. You're tuning back into your life instead of just going through the motions. And so if you're asking yourself, what now? Well, the answer's simple. Just pick one thing, just one, and start doing it. Sit down tonight and maybe start, sketching out what life, an alignment wheel. Maybe it's digging out that old notebook where you had dreams, and it used to fire you up. Maybe it's texting a friend asking, hey, what strengths do you see that maybe I don't see in myself? Whatever it is, that's enough to just get things moving forward. Start with whatever that thing is and just start moving forward. Now, if today sparked something for you, if it resonated with you in any way, then once again, that's why I would say go get yourself a copy of the GIVER Method. I'll put the link to Amazon, The GIVER Method by Jake Talbert. Go get yourself a copy. It will have such a massive impact on your life, no matter at what stage of life you are in. You can also find it on thegivermethod.com, as well as if you, once again, like I said, if you're man, I love this and it would resonate so well with my audience, my podcast, my event that I have coming up, well then use the link down below. Let's schedule a time and talk about what that could look like, where we could provide value to your community, tribe, audience, whatever that may look like. Now, if you want to keep this going, the conversation, once again, please hit the subscribe button. I drop these new videos throughout the week, built for people just like you who are busy, capable, caring, and ready for, to live that life that actually feels like you. Drop a comment and let me know which of these things landed for you today. I love to read every single one of these. I love to hear which part of it you are looking to reset as your next step. And the one thing I want to leave with you is remember, this is not a meltdown. It's not a crisis. You're not stuck. You're not lost. You're not late. You're right on time to remember who it is you are and where you're headed next. This is the next chapter that you're preparing for. It doesn't have to look like the first. It gets to look like you and what you want that version to be. So start building it. Let's keep building it on purpose with your gifts, and superpowers at the front and center of that. And so with that, I will catch you in our next video, and just have a great rest of your day.